This is A Geek Leader.
Hey guys, this is John Rauda, and I'm back again with episode 33 of A Geek Leader. Today I want to talk about dealing with vendors, and you might notice my voice is a little scratchy. I've had some pretty bad allergies this week, and it's likely that I'll cough or sneeze or something during this podcast, and if so, that's okay. I'm just going to leave it in there. But I want to talk about dealing with vendors. That's one of the challenges that I've heard from a lot of people that they have when they do get into a position of leadership in IT, is that they get called all the time. They get lots of vendor calls, they get cold calls, they get hit up at conferences, they get hit up at shows, they have vendors giving them gifts, and there's lots of things that occurs that are challenging when it becomes, how do you deal with vendors? Because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, you don't want to be rude to a vendor, but you also don't want to deal with, getting called all the time and having to know the right thing to do and the right thing to say so that you don't commit or lead people on, but also that you don't shut the door on an opportunity that may come down the road in the future. So I wanted to go through a few scenarios that you might find yourself in and some tips that I use to deal with vendors. And some people are going to love the things that I have to say, and some people are going to absolutely hate and disagree with what I say on this one. And that's okay, because we all have different viewpoints. We have different lenses that we see the world through, so we have different perspectives. And my perspective may be slightly different than yours, but this is what works for me, so that's what I'm going to talk about. And just to give you a little backstory, at my last position, I was a manager over a development team, and I got called all the time from vendors and emailed, and just it was almost ruthless. And at one point, I got to the point where I set my voicemail. I turned my phone to do not disturb and set my voicemail to say, "Hey, you've reached John Rauda. If you didn't reach me, you can leave me a message, but I probably won't call you back. So it'd be better if you send me an email. If you don't have my email address, it's in the company directory. If you don't have access to the company directory because you're not an employee, then I'm sorry." And just kind of left it at that, and I didn't return any phone calls from vendors. Maybe not the best solution, so I want to discredit that. But I understand the pain that some people may be going through with lots of calls from vendors. But vendors are our friends. We need vendors. We have to use vendors. And without good vendors, we would be struggling to hire and keep enough employees to get the job done. So it's really good to have a good relationship with a good core group of vendors. So I want to talk to you about managing those relationships and how to find new vendors and how to just deal with them. Number one, I want to talk about vendors at conferences and trade shows. So a lot of my audience, they go to different tech conferences, and there's always a lot of vendors out there. And a lot of them are giving things away for free, and they just want to scan your badge and you get something for free. I want you to always remember that nothing is ever free. There's always something that you trade. There's always some barter going on, whether it's money or whether it's your time or whether it's your phone number and your email address. You're always bartering something for that free gift that you may think you get. You may think you're getting a free fidget spinner, but in reality, you're getting about a dozen spam emails. So just be aware of that. So my rule when it comes to this is, if you're not somewhat interested in the product, just stay away from the vendor. There's no point in wasting your time and theirs to get that free fidget spinner to go and learn about a product that you really have absolutely no interest in whatsoever. And we all know a little bit about almost all the vendors that are going to be there. We know a little bit about the product, the core products. And if you don't know anything about them, then it's okay to go and listen. But be aware that you're going to probably get some follow-up phone calls and emails as a result. If you are interested, then feel free to stop by and talk to the person. And be honest about where you're at in the process. If you're actually looking to buy something, if you're just curious and you're not have zero intent, just be honest and upfront about it. Vendors appreciate that. Next is the cold call vendors. I used to get cold calls all the time at my last job. Luckily, I don't have that problem. Where I'm at now, we have we have some great people that just monitor the phones pretty relentlessly when it comes to preventing people from getting through that don't have an appointment with me, which is great. It's fantastic. But if you do get a cold call, don't be rude, don't be mean, don't just hang up on the person. Just politely say, if you're not interested, just politely say, "Yeah, I'm not interested right now. Please remove you from your call list," and let that be that. If they continue to call, then you can, get a little bit more aggressive. But at first, be very polite. You never know if you want to come back and use that vendor in the past. You don't want to burn any relationships or destroy any bridges at that point. You want to maintain that good relationship. So politely just say, I'm not interested. Please remove me from your call list. And, and say goodbye and hang up. And that's worked for me almost every time. Now, if you are interested, but you don't want to talk right now, just let them know. Hey, I can't talk right now. I actually might be interested in this project. Could you please send me an email with a few talking points, and I'll get back to you. Or say, yeah, I might be interested, but I'm not at a position to move forward with this project. Could you please give me a call in 4 months or 3 months? We've done that before. We've been locked in with contracts with certain vendors, and we said, hey, we may be interested in a new solution, next year. So how about we have the vendor call us again in 6 months, and then we talk about it. If you are interested in the product, then ask questions. Talk it out. You're going to make that vendor's day that you're actually talking to them, because they probably had a lot of people not talk to them and hang up on them. So talk to them. Ask them questions. Don't ever commit to anything on the first call other than maybe another call. Schedule the next call on your terms. You got taken off guard here on this cold call, so your next call needs to be on your terms. You schedule it when you're available, when you're in the right frame of mind, because you're probably working on something different when this call came up, and you weren't thinking about that product. You weren't in the right frame of mind. So schedule ahead of time. Make the call. And before that next call, make sure you've researched the company, researched the product, and have some questions that you can, more intelligent questions that you can ask. All right. Now, when you cold call a vendor, remember what's happening on the other line. Typically, you're expecting vendors to call you, and you're not happy when they call you. But the exact opposite is probably true when you make the call for them. You're calling them, and they know they have someone that's interested in their products or their service or their business. So, that's great. They should feel like they've won the lottery. However, what I found is that it's rarely the case. Sometimes you may get someone who's not having a great day, and they let you know that. But be mindful of their time, because you're catching them off guard. You didn't schedule this call with them. You're cold calling that vendor. So you need to make sure that you realize that they may be off guard and may not be ready to answer all the questions that you may have in this initial call. And that's okay. Make sure you give them grace when it comes to something like that. Understand that the initial call is really just to make a request for a follow-up call or meeting or demo that's going to be more involved and have more of the answers that you're actually looking for. Don't expect to get all the answers in a single first call. That's not a very good way of going about that. Feel free to ask about pricing, but understand you may only get like the preliminary, online off-the-shelf product pricing at this time. You're not going to be getting your discounts. You're not going to be getting all the details, because you haven't gone through the due diligence of doing a demo, explaining all the situations, and meeting with the vendor prior to that. So you may get some information right off the bat. I rarely ever would tell someone what the max budget would be, but I do feel that it's completely acceptable to offer a range to make sure that the product's even in line with what you're looking for and what they're looking for. If your range is too low for them, they might not even, it might be a waste of time for them to demo, your time and theirs, and that's not respectful from them or for you. Make sure before you do cold call a vendor that you've done a little bit of research. You're not going to get 100% of the information on the call, but make sure you're not just calling blind. You at least know what products they're selling or what services they offer. Don't be calling a development vendor trying to find resources to help you finish out a project that's written in PHP when the company you're calling only does .NET development. Those are always things that you can find on their website or somewhere. You'll be able to find some information about the resources or the product or services that they offer, and make sure you're at least in line and in the ballpark on that. Now, when you're deciding between vendors, you need to do a lot of diligence. I recommend going back and listening to the podcast episode that I have, The Art of Negotiation, because you can always negotiate. You can use one vendor against another. That's okay. Just be open and upfront and honest about what you're doing, and never manipulate or lie. But I want to go through a couple of things that I use when I'm trying to decide between vendors, and some of my rules that I follow when it comes to dealing with vendors. Number one, I always ask for references and check those references. I refuse to switch to a vendor without asking for references. And I've even had some vendors come to me and say, "Hey, you're the first person using this product." And I said, "Okay, great. Let me know some of your other customers that are using different products that I can talk to." Although that is a big red flag to be the first one on a product, but it doesn't necessarily, rule them out. As long as they have really good references in other areas, it might be okay. Always check those references. If a company sends you 3 references, call them all. Don't just don't just call the first one. Ask questions about what their experience was like. What was it like going through the process? Tell me what you liked most about the product. Tell me what you liked least about the product. How has support been? Those are all good questions that you can ask those references. And next, compare the costs and benefits. A lot of times products aren't apples to apples. They're slightly different. So think about all the costs that are involved, not just the initial cost, but the total cost of ownership, and what the maintenance costs are, and realize that all those costs can be negotiated. Maintenance costs are absolutely negotiated. You don't always have to pay the 18% that's tacked on whenever you're buying a product. So try your best to compare apples to apples, and steak to steak, or pizza to pizza, whatever you are, but understand that sometimes you can't, and the products are just slightly different. Number 3, this is one that I get a lot of weird looks when I say this, but don't accept gifts from potential vendors. Just don't do it. I had a vendor once send me ice cream to my house, which was really awkward and weird. I've had vendors send me golf tickets and invite me to play top golf, send me baseball tickets, and it's not worth it to accept gifts from vendors. I go so far as I don't even let potential vendors buy lunch whenever they come out to meet. I'm going to buy my own lunch. That's just, and I know it seems petty, it seems small, but I want it to be clear when we get into negotiations that I don't owe them anything. And I know a lot of people say, well, it's just part of their job to do that. No, it's not. If you accept something, somewhere in the back of your brain or somewhere deep inside, you're going to feel a little bit like you owe them a little bit of something. And I don't want that feeling at all. I don't want anything to cloud my judgment when I'm making a decision on something like that. So I don't accept gifts whatsoever, not even lunch. If a vendor does insist on going to lunch, I'll go, but I'm going to pay for my own. And sometimes I'll even pay for theirs. And that just kind of flips the table when it gets to that negotiation point. So I know some people don't like that and don't agree with it, but that's my take on it. Now, with that being said, after you've signed an agreement, if they want to, send something over, that's your discretion. I still don't really like the idea of getting a gift from a vendor. It just seems odd, and I don't really like it. But next up, I want to talk about negotiation. Always, always, always negotiate. Even if they say this is a final offer, it's non-negotiable. Try to negotiate something. Even if you don't win, it's good practice to try. Always, always negotiate. And let the vendors know that you're deciding between other vendors. Now, that's perfectly acceptable. You don't have to tell them who the vendors are, but you can tell them that there's another, and a lot of times they'll ask me, what other companies or products are you looking at? I say, well, I just got a couple other vendors, and, we're trying to decide between 2 solutions that do similar things, and, price does come into play as one of the things, and some of the features that you offer, we don't need. So we don't need all those features, so we don't feel like we should be paying for them all, so try to get a discount. Play the game the best you can. Understand the quoted price is not always the final price. And always, always, always ask for a better price. Ask to see what you can do better. One time, this has been several years ago, I actually, when I first took over managing the support agreements for several software vendors that we were using, I sent out emails to all the software vendors when it came time to renew our support, and just said, hey, I've been a loyal customer for X number of years. We're very happy with the product. We're not looking to move to anyone else, but because I've been such a loyal customer, I was wondering if you can give me a discount on ongoing support. Last year we made, very few calls to your support, X number of calls or 0 calls or however many calls it was, and we would like to have the support reduced. Some companies just replied, no, we can't do that. It's against our policy, and that's fine. I tried. I sent an email, right? Cost me absolutely nothing. But I actually had one company who we were paying 18% in annual maintenance, wrote back, and they reduced it to 10%. Huge savings. It was nearly $10,000 off that one email. A great return on an email. But it's very simple things that you can do to get the price down. And you can take, one piece of a quote from one vendor and say, hey, look, this company is not charging me, for these features, but you guys are. Can you include them in as a bundle deal for this? And we've had that happen. Another good tactic is to find out when the quarter's end, the fiscal year is over for that company. You can usually get better deals and discounts at that point. All right, next, try not to get locked in. Try to avoid the long-term agreements. I had one vendor that offered me a great price on a service, but the contract was for a 60-month term. And I'm like, everybody else is offering me 12-month terms, and you want to get me locked in for a 60-month term. That's kind of ridiculous. And basically, I was like, I'll go with you if you lower the term. One of the things that I try to do is to add a clause into the contracts that says that if I'm not happy, I can leave within the first 3 months with no penalty. So that makes things a little bit different. But say, yeah, I'll sign a 12-month agreement, but if I'm not happy in the first 3 months, then I can leave without penalty. So that encourages them to be on top of their game that first 3 months, to offer great support and to get you, to be a satisfied customer. Next is avoid buyer's remorse. Once you've signed a statement of work or an MSA and you're good to go with this company, stop looking. Stop into entertaining other options. Stop looking around. Because you might find something that you like a little bit better, or you might find something that questions your decision. And if you do that, you're going to be less satisfied with the decision that you made. And that's just not a good feeling. It's not good for that product or service that you're moving to. It's not a good thing to get into. So just avoid that buyer's remorse. It's just like when you're looking for a car and you buy a car, stop looking for cars. Otherwise, you're going to find there's always a better deal. There's always something better out there. And it's not worth your time or energy or resources to continue to focus on that. All right, maintain the relationship. Stay in touch with your sales rep. After you purchase things, a lot of times you get handed over from your sales engineer somewhere else, but maintain that relationship. I know a lot of good sales reps, they'll reach out regularly. Account managers will reach out and try to keep in touch with you. Do the same. Be a good customer. Be the customer that they want. Don't be the pain in the butt customer. Be the customer that they want. And that's going to help you out in the long run. That's going to help you out in the future. It's going to help you out the next time you want to buy something if you're that good customer. So maintain that relationship. Sometimes they'll give you renewals on services at a discount if you have that good relationship. We've had vendors that we maintained good relationship that offered us training credits, to help us with education and moving our team forward. So maintain that good relationship. It's always helpful. And last but not least, this is the most important part when it comes to dealing with vendors, is to remember the person on the other end of that transaction is just that. They're a person. They're just like you. They're just like me. We're just flesh and blood, but we have feelings, we have emotions, we have good days, and we have bad days. Business to business is not a company buying from a company. It's a person within a company buying from a person within a company. And it always comes down to that person. So make sure you treat that person with respect, and don't treat a person bad because of the company that they work for. Always treat each other with respect. Hold people to high standards, and don't be rude. You don't want a bad reputation of being that jerk to deal with. You want to be respectful and understand that the person on the other end is also a person. They're just that. They're just a person, just like you, and treat them like that. Don't treat them like an inferior person. That they are just as worthy as you are to be where they're at, and treat them that way. And that's one thing that always drives me crazy, is when people are disrespectful to people in other fields or other professions or other people on the other end, because there's no place for disrespect in the business of leadership. There just isn't. So that's my take on how to deal with vendors. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've got something out of it. I do want to encourage you to go over to geekleader.com/survey and fill out a survey about technical leadership. It's just a simple, take you maybe a minute or two, just about what your biggest challenges are right now. How can we develop better content to help you meet those challenges? And a couple of demographic questions that will help us, help me, write better content for you guys and better shows and get better guests on. We do have a couple of guests lined up coming up for some interviews, which should be fun. I'm sure you're probably getting tired of hearing me all the time. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Please head over to iTunes, give me a review, and share this out on social media. That would be much appreciated. And again, the survey is at geekleader.com/survey. Thanks so much.